idea or concept of a outline of moral principles. Okay? In other words, where we have something that establishes borders, not our interpretation of borders, Kai, but borders. These are things, they're guidelines. They're not guidelines, they're actually laws, they're commandments. They're written down, passed down through generations. Dustin, if you have a guy walk up, man, I got a new idea. Well, what's your new idea? Well, I can tell you how we can remodel this house and how we do this thing. Okay, so tell me about this thing. I don't think I'll try that. Because he says, well, we can try this and we can add this paint, or we can do this and cheapen this job and make this happen faster. No, there are proven procedures that work. And if you follow proven procedures, Eric, why is there basically rules and laws, and they're called what? Code? Code is a reason. The thing is that where did you learn code? The book. You have to go back to the book, but it starts somewhere at a formal education. The problem is that when we started it at home, and it goes back to this point, Jesus basically asked, how'd you miss this, Mom? First thing is, you knew I was this dude. But the second thing is, it hints at the fact that how was you not taught this? In other words, if you did not know this, in other words, if I say, well, Dory, how'd you not know that you're supposed to be barbecue today? But if I said, hey, Dory, we talked about it, and, everybody said, hey, Dory, you're going to bring Oompa Loompas. Well, yeah, then all of a sudden, well, Dory, how'd you not remember that? Well, I'm old or I'm whatever. Okay, then we can buy that excuse. But the thing is that if you're not aware of something, you cannot say, well, how'd you not know? Well, if you're not aware of something, then you don't know. But the thing is, she should know. Where did this learning start from? It did not start from home. Because the problem with a home-based education is this. I have no problem with, and I would love to see my grandchildren out of public schools. I would love to see it. But if you're foolish enough to think that Christian education is the answer, do you know where people go who get kicked out of public school go to? Private school. Military schools. So the thing is that if you go to a private school, guess what you're surrounded by? The thing is that why I am somewhat of a proponent of public schools is this. Kids have to learn. I remember telling one of my grandchildren one time, I said, hey, if you want to look like this, you better get tough. Because somebody's going to challenge you on this look. And when you're challenged on this look, you better be prepared to defend yourself from this look. You have to go and you have to be around society to understand it. Because again, if I think back on this video of this girl. Somehow, some way, because how she was dressed and how she looked, and she thought she had these freedoms, and she placed herself in a position of vulnerability. Either she was lured into this place of vulnerability, she was lured in this place of freedom, but somewhere along the line, she was lured out of her zone of protection. When we have a home-based education system, in other words, where our home is basically guided by, oftentimes, it's like Amber and I was talking about Methuselah. Have y'all heard of Methuselah?
Yeah.
Who was he?
He was the oldest dude alive.
He was the oldest dude alive. How old was he, Jackson?
126.
And how do you know that?
Just the number I remember when I searched up on Google. It was those.
But did Mimi teach about it?
No,
we didn't teach about that. That was you and I talking
so I probably. I'm
So
probably
again,
wrong.
you see my
Bible
thing
probably says
is that
something
how many of
different.
y'all are aware of how old he was?
Bible probably says something different than the historical record.
So,
I remember
my point that I'm trying to make, this is why a church is so very important.
69.
I was going to say you had to be in the 9.
So,
Because Moses.
this is why church is so important. When we're in church, we're breaking down truths. We're establishing things. From from a group study, because within a group study, what did we just see demonstrated here?
That none of us knew the real age of Methuselah.
We had an awareness. Did anybody not know who Methuselah was when I mentioned it?
I knew, but I didn't know.
You knew, but you didn't know.
Yeah.
But again, here's these things, because this is a saying. Well, he's old as Methuselah. That was a saying. But who's Methuselah? There's a point that I'm trying to make. There's so much about the Bible that we do not understand. But yet, we talk to people who are constantly saying, well, I can get my church in the deer stand, I can get my church in fishing, I can get my church watching it on TV. The problem is that is watching on TV the same thing as experiencing life? It's not, isn't it? You miss a big component of it. We have a responsibility. Jesus knew his responsibility. I find it, again, somewhat interesting that a year before he was accountable, he was already at his Father's business. I find that really weird. The point that I'm really trying to make in this thing is that it starts in the temple. From the temple, we take these truths and then we go home and we start applying these truths in our lives. Because we all know that if given the opportunity, the human mind and the human soul, human will is going to go back to its old ways to justify and lie these things. Church is a discipline. It is a discipline that we start setting ourselves apart. We start doing these things. When we talk about God's plan for the children, my mind is really on youth. The children, age 12-ish, I say honestly, from, probably about maybe 9 to 12, that is this formative years where they should be given this information, they're starting to be aware. Zane asked me this morning, he said, Papa, he said, why do you write all this stuff down? Where did it all come from? I said, son, one day you're going to understand. One day I will share it with you, then you will understand how it works for me, then I will lay this out for you. David and I was watching Zane yesterday. His little mini bike, we finally got it running again. And one of the reasons why I've not been so excited about getting it running, because as David and I was talking about, if you own a motorcycle, it's not if, it's when. And in the past, I have been very guilty of just letting him get on it and going. But yesterday, David and I talked about it, and I said, with both David, we're like, yeah, this is getting ready to happen. And all of a sudden, we see Zane standing up on his motorcycle. Now, understand, it ain't. How long, David, has it been down?
6 months.
Months. First time back on it, and the boys decided, Dustin, that he's capable of standing up on his motorcycle and riding. He ain't rode it in months, but he's now figured this thing out. Jumping off curves the whole 9 yards with it. And we're like, okay, now we're considering gloves. We got to get him gloves, get him better stuff, because again, he's going to go this way. You're not going to change that part about him. But the thing is that you can give him guidance, you can give him protection. We've been there. We started describing to him road rash. Anybody ever had road rash?
Yeah.
Yes. Anybody ever ridden motorcycles with shorts on?
Yes.
And no shirts? Yes. Yes. And like David said, you start picking out gravel out of your skin. It's coming. It's coming. It's going to happen. It is our responsibility to teach and prepare this boy. But as well, it is our responsibility, because society teaches us that we should let the child express itself. That the child can make decisions about what they want to be. The problem is that my big problem that I have with that, then how come a child cannot go liquor store and buy beer?
I can't drive a car.
But again, you can't drive a car. It's like you have to wear a helmet.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You don't have to wear a helmet to ride a motorcycle, but you've got to wear seatbelts if you're in a car. Stupid laws. But the point is that I'm trying to make is that we have to establish guidelines and say this is limitations. If we cave into society and do not place limitations upon our children, what we're going to have is, again, conversations. What are we going to do when it is programmed into our children to kill? Because they've already been desensitized to killing. We've got schools teaching them. All these things are all in this battlefield. Where are we going to start drawing the line? Because if we do not understand and we do not start training, but the other side of it is not the church's responsibility to train the children. It is the church's responsibility to train the parents. The parents take what they learn, the guidelines, the boundaries, they start going home and they start living to these guidelines and living to these boundaries. Does that make sense?
But the church, you said, I thought it took everyone in the village to raise a child. And so that is,
Would you want the village raising your child?
No, I would.
it depends on the people in the village.
Good.
But the village. Problem is with the village, with any society or any model society, do you ever find the utopia that says everybody is equal, everybody is going to the same goal? Not even Christianity. The thing is, the problem with raising, it takes a village, Zeke, is the entire village and not all. You as parents have to be the filter of the influencing on your children. You look, I remember my mama. She would say, whatever you do, if you go to Helena, you go to somewhere like that, all the family will tell you, don't marry these people. Now, who's her parents? They want to know who the parents was because they want to find out if they were related. But the other side is there were family people that was down this road here that my mama says, I'm going to tell you something, if you ever show up with one of them right there, she says, you're done. And it was a group of family members because this family had a tradition of being this type of people. And it's not a racist thing. These were white people, but yet these were white trash people. And when you start letting, again, Hillary Clinton says it takes a what? Hillary Clinton wrote the book, It Takes a Village, right? Now you consider where that statement, you consider the source of that statement. I'm sidetracked, but I'm going to get off this point. But the thing is that you do not let a village raise your children. If you've noticed, when Jesus slipped away from his parents, where did they go to? The family. They started looking around the relatives and all this. There are people that you have to limit access to your children because not all people are good influences on your family. Does that make sense? You know, you have family members yourself that you would not allow your grandchildren and children around. So there's that takes away that whole village thing. The parents have to be they have to be the watchers at the gate. So if we simpled it down into 4 things that we have to have a plan. We have to have a plan of how do we move forward. So the first thing is that the first thing that we have to have and we have to teach is holiness and being like Christ. In other words, we have to be different from the world. We have to start teaching that we can't be like the world. Why can we not be like the world? What does Scripture say?
I'm not from among them, Bishop.
Come ye out and be a separate people. It says, come ye out and be ye a separate people. My people, I am holy, and my people shall be holy. He's not saying that they will be, he says they better be. It's when we start teaching, but how do we teach holiness and being Christ-like. We tell our children to do what? Don't do as I do, do as I say. The thing is that children have this huge hypocrisy awareness.
Right.
In other words, all right, it's been said, and I've told y'all this, while rock and roll has been dying. Rock and roll has been dying because rock and roll at its origination was a rebellious music. It rebelled, it went against their parents. Okay? Went completely against their parents. All of a sudden, kids find parents listening to rock and roll music. Where's the form of rebellion in rock and roll? You're listening to this, you're like a Karen now. One of the favorite things, a little meme that I watched, girl's crying, she's all in these tears, and she says, I spent $300 to look like a Karen. Well, first thing is, it tells you right there that this kid did not earn $300. Because if you earn $300, I do not see you spending $300 on a haircut. I'm not spending $300 on a haircut. I understand if it's a special occasion, getting married or whatever crap you want to do, if you want to do it, but if you've got $300 to spend on getting your hair cut, I can understand that. But again, that does not mean it's right, does not mean it's wrong. That's however you want to spend your money. But I do not see her, Dustin, out there cleaning out houses or running equipment all day long, because you do that stuff, you know how you earn that money. But the thing is that if your kids do not see it, because there's this rebellious thing, you don't do it, you do it, your kids are going to be like you. There has to be somewhere along the lines where we draw a line as a family unit and says, okay, every time we'll say something or something gets said, how many times have you ever heard this? Well, you do it, you say it. So you have to be aware that the only way you can teach holiness and being like Christ and being separate from the world is from you yourself separating from the world. Once we start teaching this, then we have to start teaching purpose. Purpose is described as this. Number one, you have to create an awareness of a purpose. I told Axton, if Axton can remember this, I said, Axton, what is most important about, if you remember when Axton was baptized, and we had some other people who were baptized, but the thing is that, already got baptized, but the thing is that when Axton was baptized, I said, Axton, you have to ask this question. Why did God call you out? Why did God call you out? Why did Axton, now Axton, if you remember on the Methuselah thing, how did he answer that? First thing, he said a number, which this completely defaults him being a genius, so now we realize he can err. Okay, so you're one step below genius action. Okay, just deal with that one. That's humanity. But the next thing is, he said, how did he say it? He did what?
I had gotten it from Google whenever it was against the...
You was looking for it, but what was my question that I asked you then? Did Mimi teach you about it?
No.
And you said, no. When I asked that question, Mimi and I was talking about Methuselah. She said, well, there's a good Sunday school class. So it went from there. But the point is that Axton, what prompted you, and I'm getting there to a reason, what prompted you to be stirred towards finding out, how did you think about Methuselah? How did Methuselah come to your mind?
Well, you said something about like Methuselah being really old or something.
And so it caught your attention.
Yeah, and my mind went straight to like whenever I would search up who was the oldest person ever on Google and Guinness Book of World Records, it told me it was something.
Okay.
Like
Now this proves the next point that I'm getting to. You remember what I always told you, what is the most important thing that we should have an understanding of? It's this. Whenever something is going along and we're studying something or we're talking about something, what did I tell you is the most important thing, AJ?
Whatever stands out, that's what you're going to do. It's not
What?
what you're studying, that's what stands out to you.
It's a marker.
Yeah.
It's an off-ramp. It tells you something's going on there. But it's God's way of communicating to you. The thing is that why I told y'all all this is so I could create within inside of you an awareness. That you start looking for it. Because how many times, I remember going up for years saying these words. Man, I wish God would talk to me. I wish God would talk to me. The thing is that that's how I believed it. I did not know how to listen for God. One of the things about how to listen to God is listening for signs. In other words, something that catches your eye. Once, it's kind of like for me, why was Jesus 12 years old when the age was 13? Why is there a difference between 12 and 13? Why is there? What is the importance of this thing? That tells me that there's something going on. But see, now that I'm having an awareness for it, it takes me to, once I have awareness that something exists, and that's why I've tried to do it within you, try to do it with my grandson, because hopefully it will lead to this next part. It causes you to start searching for it. In other words, you start searching for the answers. I've told you searching for the first question is important, but it's not.